Hey, I'm Charlize. I'm a life coach, a mom, an animal lover, and more. I help women dream big and take action towards their goals to create a life they love. Think of this as my virtual couch where we talk about topics like self growth, motherhood, and more. I strongly believe when women are empowered, we come alive. Allow me to be your confidant, professor, cheerleader, and hype girl. Grab your favorite beverage and get ready to be empowered and encouraged. This is The Moment Podcast.
Self-care has become extremely important for me lately, and I have been reading a book that I'm more so using as like a resource. So I kind of come back to it when I feel like I need to prioritize my self-care. And that the name of the book is Self-Care for Black Women because um I definitely wanted to make sure that I not only prioritized self-care but also keeping in mind that some of the things that I may need would be different than someone who isn't a Black female. So that's definitely something that I wanted to make sure that I incorporated into my self care plan and just practice, is because there are some aspects that need to be addressed due to the racial trauma and experiences that I have had as a Black woman. With that being said, I think regardless if you're a Black woman or not, practicing radical self care is one of the major things that I know I'm going to try to focus on and that I've been focusing on. And I believe that everyone should focus on that. It's something that I believe will dramatically impact not only your overall satisfaction with your life and well being, but it'll also make sure that you are in alignment with who you want to be, with your mind, your body, your soul, and like your spirit, and operating at a level that is the highest version of yourself. Um, for me, that's so important because I think I'm always going to be just that type of person that is constantly evolving and striving and evaluating. And it's not that I'm unhappy with the life that I have. It's quite the opposite. It's almost that I want to be able to show up as the best version of myself as much as possible for myself, my clients, my family, my friends. And so being able to prioritize self care in a way that enables me to be my best self is so important to me. I cannot stress that enough. And so, one of the things that I wanted to talk about is radical self care. And what is something that you can do? What is it? And also, what is something that you can do that hopefully is consistent and sustainable? Because that's ultimately the goal. Because in reality, we're all busy. We have so many things going on. And we need to be realistic about what that self care is going to look like for us in the season of life that we're in. Let me explain what I mean by that. So, for instance, if I am someone who is like an empty nester, my time that I have to be able to give for self care is going to look differently than a parent of a newborn, or it's going to look differently than a parent of three children as opposed to a parent of one child. It's also going to look differently if you're a single parent, which 100% is unique and presents its own challenges. And trust me, I have been there, so I understand that when you're a single parent, you are literally just trying to survive. And the last thing you're thinking about is yourself, let alone self-care. So, one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I talk about is how to practice self-care, and that is being able to build in something that is relatively easy, right? Um, Hopefully free or minimal cost, because let's face it, it's rough out here. So, making sure that you're realistic with the time commitment, the access that you have to that. So, for example, if you need to leave something out as a visual, physical reminder, like, hey, I'm going to work out in the morning, and I already struggle with getting up in the morning as it is. I'm a visual person, just as an example. Let me put out my yoga mat in this area so that way when I get up, all I got to do is just put my clothes on, and then I can see that, oh, right, I'm going to do yoga. So being able to prompt yourself almost in a way that can give you that visual cue, oh, right, I was going to do this thing, will help it become more sustainable and you're more likely to do it. Now, if you're also someone like me who gets very anxious at the sight of like visual clutter, 100% I understand that and I get that. So that's why I suggest it to be in like an area that you're typically already probably utilizing in a way that is perhaps multi-purpose, or perhaps nobody really sees that much, or an area you don't go in all the time but you still have access to, one with a door, just so that if you do need to leave out some equipment or whatever it is, that you're able to kind of shut that visual aspect off. So whether it's closing a door, things like that, that can make it less anxiety provoking and still set yourself up for success in that you're prepping for that activity and planning for when you're going to do that. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. If not, please just let me know and I will definitely reword that, because sometimes I can go off on tangents, I know. So I want to make sure that I'm sticking to the things that I actually wanted to talk to you about, which was radical self-care. Okay, so obviously we know that when you practice self-care, it improves your overall well-being, right? And the reason why this is important is because it also prevents illness and disease. And so, as I stated before, being a Black woman, it's already going to make me predisposed to certain types of illnesses and diseases. So, making sure that I'm able to practice self care, but in a way that's sustainable, is in a sense for me also combating the other things that I need to release, the other things that are stored within my body and in my mind and in my spirit from just simply existing. And so it can be very, very important not to lose sight of that, because we live in like this modern world, and that's great, but we also want to make sure that you're essentially creating a safe space for yourself in a world that does not necessarily care to make room for you. So you have to make room for yourself and you have to prioritize yourself. And that's one of the things I think that I'm slowly realizing over the years and just over time. And I'm definitely making sure that I'm prioritizing it in some way, shape, or form, because not only will my future self be extremely grateful for me making the choices that I'm making now, but I'm also setting a really great example for Savannah, my daughter. I'm also making sure that I'm, like I said, showing up as my best self, and this is going to enable me to do that. So it's just a little bit about, like, again, just to get you thinking about, if you're not already practicing radical self care, if you're not practicing self care at all, some things, food for thought, some things to think about as to why you should start, why you should be making sure that you're prioritizing it. And if you have a very specific question as to how you can implement self care into your life, I would love to help you with that. Sometimes you just need like another perspective, or an unbiased party, or just like kind of someone else to bounce ideas off of, and I can be that person for you. You can also reach out to a friend or family member. Sometimes when you're not in it so much, you're able to see things that you can't really see because you're the one that's essentially involved in, whatever that thing is or that situation. You're too close to it. So making sure that you are prioritizing it, making it realistic, sustainable for like long term, and just making it easy. Like, how can you make this easy? What's the best way you can set yourself up for success? What's the easiest way that you can make it more likely for you to do this thing, whatever that thing is for you? And again, the easier it is for you, the more likely you are to do it. And so that's why I also want to make sure that it's essentially not stressing you out more so, and you're inspired or motivated to do that thing, even if at times you don't always feel like that. It's really important to make sure that there's less friction for you to just start. So just start. Just start. And if I had to give any advice or a suggestion of like, quote, where to start, I would say one of the biggest things you can do for yourself, and one of the most important areas that I believe that you should focus your self-care on, for your mental health, is the mind. Your brain, the mind. It is extremely powerful. It is essentially the epicenter for your wellness. So just remembering that, like, your brain is an organ and it controls all of the functions in your body. So keeping that in mind, you just want to make sure that you are optimizing your brain for the best health. I don't know how to say it, but you are optimizing your brain so that it can operate at the highest level. That's what I was trying to say. So if I had to like pick, right, mind, body, soul, or spirit, depending on, what's your preference. But if I had to pick, I say soul. But if I had to pick, I would say mind. Just start at the mind first. That would be where I would start. And that is what I recommend to everyone that I work with, because it is that important. So that's all I have for today's episode. A little off the cuff. Let me know how you felt about this episode. I definitely did this one with no script or outline or anything of the sort. So I for sure need and want to hear your feedback on what you liked and what you didn't like. And as always, I hope you have a great night, and thank you for listening. And I'll talk to you soon.
Alrighty, well, that is it. Time flies when you're having fun, right? I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Moment Podcast. Remember, I'm always sending sunshine your way.